capacity a lot from our subcommittee chairs when they make their presentation. Because as we move forward, presently a lot of the government agencies are already stretched, and to add additional growth into the island within a short period of time will obviously put a demand on their capacity needs. Our agency is one of the regulatory agencies that is going to be reviewing the EIS and the environmental issues. And even at that point in time, all the regulatory agencies, and not just local, but even the federal agencies, as we communicate with them, as we review the EIS, they have capacity issues. And so, you know, in order for us, for Guam, to meet the needs or the growth demands that we're going to encounter in the next few years, we're going to need major assistance from the federal government.
Well, you know, I think again we're facing massive social and cultural change. It's going to, you know, if and when this buildup occurs, it's like a typhoon hitting us, and we have to prepare for it. And then we have to look at the aftermaths, and there's some recovery issues that we may have to deal with. But you know, there are specific threats, and you know, some of the concerns that have been put out there. You've put it out many times yourself, Debbie, about what's going to happen to our culture, what's going to happen to our social fabric, our sense of inafamalik, our sense of family. What happens to all of that, and what are the specific threats to that? Obviously, 25,000 people coming from another land is going to be a big threat.
I mean, the more time you spend in traffic, the less time you're spending playing with your children.
Well, that's a good point.
There's just basic everyday
Mr. Paloma?
And even if we don't do anything, we're losing it.
Right.
Our language is lost.
Yes.
Okay.
But that's been argued that as a result of the military
there's no way we can recover it, and that's what the major aspect of culture.
Right.
And I think our habits are going to change. It's just, my problem is that the federal government does not think of Guam as a civilian community with Americans living. They think of Guam as a federal defense force. Okay. And I think we should get rid of that. Okay. Because we may need more military, but I'm not quite sure what for.
Okay.
Are we fighting China? I don't think China wants to fight. So whom are we fighting? Japan? No, Japan learned its lesson. So there is, I don't see any enemy. I don't see. So why are we increasing military?
Okay.
No, it's just because there's no other place to put them. That's why Guam is taking them, because apparently Hawaii doesn't think too highly of the idea, and so is California and other places. So this is the place that of least resistance, you know. I just don't think it makes sense to increase the military. That's for one thing. The other thing is that we should be thinking of us first before we think of others. That's
okay, very clear point there.
That's my point.
Again, the tip of the spear kind of perspective of it is one side of it. Debbie, you seem to be chomping at the bit.
I think that
let's keep your bit short now.
Yes, I'd like to say that I don't think that we've lost our language.
Okay.
I think that we are facing some challenges, but I think that and I believe that we have the capacity and the capability to meet that straight forth and in a frontal attack, if I'm to speak plainly. I think that we need to get our own education department to take our Chamorro language classes seriously and not think of them as electives, because they aren't. And we as a people have to do that. But you're right. We are having problems now. Can you imagine if we were to have this type of influx? What would happen to us then?
Okay, Dr. Hattori, you had a comment you wanted to make?
Well, this is just tying into what Debbie's saying. Just actually a few days ago at the University of Guam, I submitted a proposal to create a new minor program in Chamorro Studies. So this would be an example of something that we are aggressively trying to do at the university. We have, at this point, no program in Chamorro language, Chamorro Studies, except for the education department, education school. So we're trying, and part of the intention here is to tap into what is really a revival and a huge growth interest among young Chamorros. And in the proposal, I had to do an analysis of our enrollment data, and Chamorro language classes at the University of Guam have increased in enrollment by 70% over the last 2 years.
Amazing.
History of Guam class enrollment has gone up 28% in the last 2 years. So clearly, among our young students, there is an increase, 70% increase in Chamorro enrollment. To me, that's astronomical.
Huge. Astronomical.
Show me any other program that's had a 70% increase in 2 years. So what we're trying to do is kind of tap into not only that energy and this momentum, but also to develop a curriculum that seriously engages with historical and contemporary issues in Chamorro cultural development, including language, culture, environmental biology, marine biology, Chamorro, Micronesian mental health, political science classes, history classes. So we're starting with a minor. I mean, we've just submitted the proposal. I'm assuming it will go through. And
nice pitch, by the way.
I hope that, you know, maybe in a year or so, you know, we'll work towards a major to actually get a bachelor's degree. But I mean, I think this is a kind of a small step that we can take that can sort of translate into increased awareness and appreciation, not only among those students who are enrolled, but I think it has the potential to multiply.
Well, I think that's a good point. I think, you know, every time we've had a demographic shift, you know, over the last 125 years, for the most part, it's been because of our strategic role, if you will, or military events that happened. But generally, we've been kind of just that island that's out here that's you know, basically moved by events outside of its control and stuff. But, you know, again, looking at it from the military buildup, what part should the military play in trying to help us, if they can at all, retain some of those cultural attributes and those social attributes? And what about our Guam leadership? What's their role in this besides words? Besides just getting out there and yada, 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 what should our leaders be doing to make sure our social and cultural attributes are maintained, strengthened, and kept alive?
Cliff, if I can get the opportunity to respond, I think, you know, I re-echo Dr. Hattori's comments that we've come a long way in terms of our cultural preservation activities and those sorts of things with regards to language, in terms of the development of a Chamorro Studies program. I think we've done a lot of stuff in-house, if you will. But we, you know, Mr. Lamorena earlier had shared how you've been requesting from the military side of the House different statistics, and those have not been made available. I also have been a member on one of the different subcommittees of the CMTF, the Civilian Military Task Force, and I think that really kind of raises a very important issue in terms of our relation with the military and the federal government in the planning of this buildup, and that is that there is no transparency in terms of what that plan looks like. You know, because of our colonial status, because of our political status, when this accord was written between Japan and the United States, for the most part, we weren't consulted in that process, you know, and to a large extent, even with the master plan, the great master plan that we've been waiting to come down from heaven above, you know, I've never seen, and I'm very vested in this interest,
sure
you know, and likewise we have the EIS report that's going to be forthcoming that, as Governor Camacho had shared, is now 10,000 pages.
Sure.
You know, there is such a major disconnect between the initiatives and the effort that we on Guam are making, even through the CMTF process with the federal government. And I think that's largely connected to political status. And so kind of getting back to your original question about what can the federal government do, I think one of the most important things is to allow us the opportunity to exercise our right to self-determination. You know, and when you look at the government, our local leaders, and what our local leaders can do is to, you know, it almost seems like from the beginning of this conversation in 2006, when the announcement came down of this transfer, it's almost like, okay, let's put aside all of our issues so we can be the best welcoming committee so that nothing will hiccup this plan, so we can get these big pots of gold coming down from heaven to infuse our, our economy. But at the same time, I mean, we have compromised so much, and I really believe that this is the opportune time to pull out our bargaining chips, like the fact that they want to build up so that we can get the things that we need, and that really, again, like self-determination and cleanup of different sites that have been contaminated on our island. We need to move those agendas forward.
Well, thank you very much for that perspective. You know,
are you going to take questions?
Boy, can we have the next 2 days? Okay, all to ourselves, because there's a lot of stuff that we can really get into here. But, you know, what I want to do, we're bumping up against your lunch hour. I don't want to take away your lunch hours out there. But we do want to get a couple of comments or questions from the audience. So I'm going to ask you to keep your comments or questions as concise as possible and to the point. And